The universe responds to the rhythm of the soul that observes it. Plotinus. What if reality isn't something you live in, but something that's silently living through you? What if every thought, every emotion, every breath is broadcasting a frequency that bends the world around you? And what if the only reason life feels random is because no one ever taught you how to control that broadcast? Hold this line. What comes next rewrites everything you thought was real. It becomes clear that everything begins with a quiet shock. Nothing is truly solid, not even the body that feels so familiar. Awareness starts to notice movement beneath matter, tiny waves hiding under every sensation. Life behaves more like vibration than shape, more like a field than a form. When this realization lands, something loosens in the mind. And a quiet question rises: what else has been misread about reality? Most people treat their bodies like concrete, even though every atom is mostly empty space in motion. The biological hardware feels heavy, but the animating signal running through it feels weightless, almost electric. That signal is the real identity, and the body simply translates it into movement and experience. It's the same logic as a phone and its wireless connection. Lose the device, and the signal continues. If the signal continues, what does that make consciousness? Energy leakage becomes the silent enemy no one notices until clarity collapses. One reactive comment, one old resentment, one anxious loop, each sends small bursts of life force outward. Over weeks and years, those micro-losses add up and people call it fatigue. But it isn't fatigue, it's energy spent unconsciously. The moment this is seen, the question forms: how much power is being lost daily without awareness? Everyday moments expose the pattern. A person snaps in traffic and feels drained for hours because the frequency collapsed in seconds. A single notification pulls attention away from inner coherence like someone hijacking a radio station. The body reacts, the mind tightens, the field destabilizes. These tiny shifts show how sensitive human energy truly is. If such small triggers alter the field, what happens with larger ones? Ancient teachings always insisted that form is just slowed down vibration, and now physics quietly agrees. Heat becomes light, breath becomes wind, consciousness becomes experience. Nothing stays in one state. The insight echoes, energy expresses, energy shapes. That means identity isn't a fixed point but a moving field of perception. And if perception shapes reality, what is reality responding to right now? Death then stops looking like an ending and starts looking like a frequency shift, like changing the channel but not the signal. The body dissolves, but the broadcast continues. This brings a strange mix of peace and responsibility, because every thought becomes transmission. Every emotion becomes signal. And if every signal broadcasts into the world, what happens when entire systems are designed to capture that broadcast next? Modern life creates a strange kind of trance without ever calling it that. Awareness starts to notice how every vibration of emotion becomes a signal that the external world tries to capture. Outrage, excitement, fear, curiosity, all of it gets harvested by systems built to keep attention hooked. Nothing is accidental, everything is engineered for reaction. And once reaction becomes routine, who's actually choosing the rhythm of the day? Technology learned to mimic psychological triggers better than most humans understand themselves. Infinite scroll behaves like a digital slot machine, rewarding the brain with unpredictable hits of stimulation. Notifications act like tiny taps on the nervous system, breaking coherence before someone even realizes it. Each interruption costs energy, not metaphorically, but biologically. How many times a day does attention snap without permission? Something shifts when a person notices how quickly the mind is pulled away from the present. One distracting video can steal an entire hour. One heated comment can hijack emotional clarity. The nervous system pays for every micro-distraction with tension that accumulates silently. It becomes clear that the trance isn't dramatic, it's subtle, continuous, familiar. And if it's familiar, how often does it slip by unnoticed? Energy drain becomes obvious when comparing days of deep focus to days of fragmented attention. On focused days, the body feels lighter, thoughts feel clearer, decisions come faster. On scattered days, even simple tasks feel heavy because energy is scattered across dozens of unfinished loops. That heaviness isn't a mystery, it's the cost of constant interference. What would life feel like if even half those loops were closed? Here's where emotional currency becomes visible. Attention is the most valuable resource on Earth. Entire industries rise and fall based on how many seconds of focus they can extract from a single mind. When someone chooses stillness for even 10 seconds, systems lose profit, which is why stillness is so rare. A brief pause in the breath right now can reveal just how fast everything is pulling. Isn't it strange how silence feels like rebellion? The echo returns. Trance breaks through awareness, awareness breaks the trance. The moment someone sees the pattern loses power. But this opens a larger question. If external systems shape internal energy so easily, what happens to the energy running inside the body itself? And where's the line between autopilot and conscious control? If this is hitting close to home, take a second, like the video, subscribe, and stay with me. What comes next goes Eve. ND. Breath reveals the entire paradox of being human. It can run on its own, or it can shift instantly the moment attention touches it. This simple switch shows how energy behaves, unconscious when ignored, powerful when directed. Most people live in a kind of internal drift, reacting to whatever enters their field. It isn't weakness, it's conditioning. And the real question becomes, when does the drift end? It becomes clear that autopilot is not an enemy but a default setting designed for survival, not mastery. The mind repeats old loops because repetition feels safe. Feel an emotion, react the same way, repeat. But every repeated reaction costs energy. It drains clarity, tension builds, and the day slips by without intentional direction. How many choices today were made consciously? A simple example exposes everything. Someone walks into a room where the energy feels off, and their mood shifts without any explanation. That shift is internal energy sinking to an external field automatically. Most people never notice it happening. Awareness starts to realize that environments program states as easily as music changes emotion. If rooms can shape inner frequency so fast, what shapes it the rest of the time? There's a moment when someone chooses to interrupt the drift, even for 10 seconds. This tiny pause changes the entire trajectory. One intentional breath, one softened posture, one choice to observe instead of react. These micro-actions feel small, but they redirect the entire internal frequency. The body responds immediately, and the field stabilizes. Isn't it interesting how quickly clarity returns when permission is given? Internal mastery begins the moment intention rises above impulse. A person who notices their own energy can redirect it like adjusting the tuning of a radio. One thought can raise the frequency, one memory can lower it. Emotional states stop being random and become signals to adjust. The echo emerges, energy follows attention, attention creates direction. If direction creates reality, what reality is being created right now? This opens a deeper door. If unconscious environments can shape internal energy, and intention can override those influences, what happens when someone learns to sense the invisible forces around them? And how does nature prove that energy responds long before the mind does? Nature makes the invisible impossible to ignore once awareness knows where to look. Animals sense earthquakes hours before the ground moves, reacting to vibrations humans can't perceive. Birds migrate across continents using Earth's magnetic field as if following an invisible map. Bees see ultraviolet patterns that don't exist in human vision. If other species live inside wider layers of reality, what layers are humans missing? Something shifts when noticing how often humans dismiss what they can't see. Sonar lets dolphins communicate through vibration that travels miles, yet people forget they're swimming in the same ocean of frequencies. Trees release chemical signals to warn each other of danger, and forests respond as one organism. Every example points to a simple truth: the unseen drives the seen. Why, then, does modern life pretend the unseen doesn't exist? A practical moment makes this real. Someone walks into a room and instantly feels tension without hearing a word. The air feels heavier, the chest tightens slightly, and instinct senses something off. That response is energetic intelligence, no different from an animal sensing danger. Humans call it intuition, but it's simply perception without the filter of thought. How often is this quiet signal ignored? The mind tries to rely only on sight, but the body listens to fields, signals, and microvibrations long before logic forms a story. Magnetism influences mood, light frequencies shift hormone production, and even the heartbeat synchronizes with nearby rhythms. When seen clearly, it becomes obvious that humans are instruments constantly tuning themselves to their environment. If tuning happens constantly, who's choosing the key? Tesla once said that the secrets of the universe are energy, frequency, and vibration, and modern physics agrees more than society realizes. Observation influences particles. Fields organize matter. Reality responds to attention. These aren't metaphors, they're mechanics. The echo returns, the invisible shapes the visible. If that's true, how many coincidences are actually responses to unseen forces? This opens a larger doorway. If energy is everywhere, shaping instinct, emotion, perception, and behavior, what does that mean for the reality someone experiences each day? And what happens when the human mind realizes it isn't just reacting to reality, it's generating it? It becomes clear that reality isn't something passively observed but something continuously generated. Focus acts like a lens, choosing which version of the world becomes visible at any moment. Two people can stand in the same place and experience completely different realities because their internal signals aren't the same. Emotion, belief, and expectation form the broadcast. If the broadcast shapes the world, what is being broadcast right now? Every thought sends a tiny ripple into the field, selecting certain probabilities over others. When someone expects rejection, their tone tightens and the world mirrors that expectation. When someone expects opportunity, the mind spots details it ignored before. This isn't magic, it's selective perception and coherent energy working together. Reality bends to focus the same way a camera bends light. Isn't it strange how often this goes unnoticed? Hermetic teachings insisted that the mind creates reality, and now quantum mechanics quietly supports the same logic. Observation collapses possibility into form. Expectation directs the collapse. Belief determines which collapse appears. These ideas sound mystical only until someone watches them happen in their own life. New ideas appear when inner states shift. New paths open when intention changes. What else changes when the inner signal shifts? A practical example makes this unmistakable. Someone believes they're unlucky, and life keeps proving them right: missed opportunities, strange timing, closed doors. But once the belief shifts, the mind starts spotting openings it used to delete automatically. People call it synchronicity, but it's simply the brain revealing what their frequency finally matches. If matching creates momentum, what happens when belief becomes deliberate? The echo rises here: change the signal, change the world. When emotion aligns with intention, reality reorganizes itself in surprising ways: new people, new insights, new patterns. This isn't coincidence, it's coherence. Emotional frequency acts like a tuning fork shaping perception. The world reflects back the tone being played. So what tone has been playing in the background of the last year? This opens a deeper doorway. If internal frequency selects reality, what happens when someone learns to change emotional states deliberately? And how does emotional alchemy free the energy trapped in old reactions waiting to be released next? Emotions feel overwhelming only because the mind keeps feeding them old stories. Neuroscience shows the raw chemical wave lasts just 90 seconds unless thought restarts it. The moment someone sees this, suffering becomes optional rather than automatic. Observe the sensation without adding explanation, and the wave burns out quickly. If the wave ends in 90 seconds, what would life look like without the loop? Most people relive emotional pain not because the emotion persists but because the narrative does. Why did this happen? Why me? It's always like this. Each thought adds another cycle. Before long, a 90-second wave becomes a 3-hour storm. When this is seen clearly, emotional alchemy stops feeling mystical. It becomes a skill. And if it's a skill, it can be practiced, right? A simple example reveals everything. Someone receives a rude message, and within seconds the body tightens. If they pause, breathe once, and stay with the sensation, the tightness fades. But if they start replaying the insult in their mind, the loop restarts, and tension grows. Emotion isn't the problem, the mental replay is. How many storms today came from replays instead of reality? Here's the micro practice, only one, the one you're allowed to keep. A 10-second reset. Exhale slowly. Bring your attention to a single physical sensation without naming it. Don't fix it. Don't analyze it. Just feel the raw signal as it is. Stay with it for a few breaths and let it fade on its own. This tiny act frees the energy that was trapped in the emotional loop, and once you experience how quickly the wave dissolves, you can't unsee it. Emotional alchemy means changing the relationship with the wave instead of fighting it. Awareness watches, breath softens the grip, and energy returns. The echo appears, feel it fully, let it move. When feeling becomes flow instead of resistance, the entire field stabilizes. The question becomes unavoidable: if emotion can be reset, what else can perception reshape? This opens the door to the mechanics behind perception itself, the filters, the deletions, the internal systems that shape what someone notices or ignores without realizing it. The mind takes in 11 million bits of information per second, but awareness sees only 40 to 50. Everything else disappears. This deletion happens automatically through the reticular activating system, RAS, a filter shaped by beliefs, fears, values, and emotional states. The moment this is understood, reality stops feeling objective. It becomes personal. And if it's personal, what has been filtered out without permission? Someone who believes the world is dangerous sees threat in every shadow. Someone who believes opportunity exists notices small openings others step right over. The same street, the same moment, two completely different realities, all because their RAS tunes perception differently. It becomes clear that life is edited before it's experienced. Who, then, is doing the editing? A practical example exposes the filter instantly. When someone buys a new car, that model suddenly appears everywhere. It was always there, but the RAS only now lets it in. The same happens with love, abundance, ideas, or fear. What enters awareness follows what the mind has been trained to look for. If training shapes perception, what shapes the training? Buddhist teachings mapped this centuries ago: sensation, thought, perception, world. Neuroscience arrived at the same conclusion with different language. The brain creates reality in layers, and the layer someone notices is based on internal programming. Awareness starts to see how much control is available once the layers become visible. Doesn't this make perception a creative tool rather than a passive one? The echo returns quietly: what you seek, you see. When someone shifts their emotional tone, the RAS recalibrates automatically. This is why joy reveals possibilities and fear reveals obstacles. The filter changes the world without changing the world. If the filter changes everything, what happens when someone learns to tune it deliberately? And this leads naturally to the next layer, the energy field around the body, the space where biology, emotion, and frequency merge into something measurable. The human heart produces an electromagnetic field measurable up to 3 feet beyond the body. This isn't theory, it's physiology. When the heart becomes coherent, the entire nervous system reorganizes into calm clarity. When it becomes chaotic, everything tightens. Awareness starts to realize that energy doesn't just exist inside, it radiates outward. And if it radiates outward, who's influencing whom in every interaction? Some people drain the field instantly, leaving a subtle heaviness behind. Others elevate it, bringing ease and warmth into the room before saying a word. The body responds to these differences in seconds, long before the mind analyzes them. This is energetic resonance, the matching and clashing of fields. How often do relationships succeed or fail because of something felt rather than said? A simple moment proves it. Stand near someone anxious, and the breath unconsciously shortens. Stand near someone grounded, and the body begins to relax. This isn't imagination, it's entrainment, the synchronization of nervous systems. Humans behave like tuning forks, absorbing and releasing frequency. If frequency spreads this easily, what happens when someone learns to project intentionally instead of reactively? Observing the breath immediately affects the field. The shoulders drop, the heartbeat steadies, and the mind clears slightly. That shift is coherence forming in real time. The echo emerges. Coherence creates order, order creates power. With practice, this coherence becomes a stabilizing force that influences environments. Doesn't this mean energetic mastery starts with self-regulation? The heart, brain, and nervous system act as one frequency generator shaping perception and behavior. When someone learns to regulate their frequency, they stop absorbing chaos and start radiating clarity. Over time, this becomes their baseline field, calm, grounded, intentional. And if this baseline becomes stable, what happens when mind and energy unify to influence the fabric of daily experience? This opens the path to the next dimension, how quantum mechanics and ancient Hermetic teachings merge into practical daily application. Quantum mechanics reveals that particles don't exist in fixed states until observed. Hermetic teachings reveal that mind shapes reality from unseen layers. Together, they point to one conclusion: consciousness directs how the world solidifies. The moment someone understands this, ordinary days stop feeling ordinary. They start feeling intentional. So what's being shaped right now? In conversation, a shift in emotional tone changes the outcome instantly. In creativity, one internal state opens ideas that another state blocks. In conflict, a single breath can collapse tension or inflame it. These moments show quantum behavior at a human scale, probability shifting based on internal frequency. If small internal shifts change external results, what can large shifts do? A practical illustration makes this tangible. Someone approaches an opportunity with fear, and the environment feels closed. They approach the same opportunity with calm curiosity, and doors open. Nothing external changed, only the state. Hermetic texts describe this as the inner moves the outer. Modern science describes it as coherence affecting probability. Different language, same mechanics. What else follows the same pattern? The observation effect appears everywhere. Focus strengthens certain realities while dissolving others. Problems feel bigger when attention feeds them, solutions appear when attention makes space for them. This isn't positive thinking, it's selective reinforcement. The world amplifies what's being observed. The echo returns, attention is creative power. If attention creates, what is being created unconsciously? This realization makes daily life feel like an experiment in frequency. Each emotional tone directs conversation, creativity, relationships, and timing. Each belief shapes what the mind allows into awareness. Each expectation guides the collapse of possibility into form. And if this is true, what happens when someone aligns their frequency with outcomes they actually want? This opens the door to the most practical layer of all, how frequency influences abundance, scarcity, and the filters shaping opportunity. Everything vibrates: sound, thought, emotion, matter. Emotional frequency acts like the tuning knob that decides what reality becomes noticeable. Scarcity tunes the RAS to danger, abundance tunes it to possibility. This is why two people can see completely different paths in the same moment. Their frequencies are filtering reality differently. What filter has been active lately? Ancient Egyptians carved sound frequencies into stone because they understood vibration alters consciousness. Modern science confirms that different frequencies change heart rate, brainwaves, and stress levels. Emotion works the same way. It tunes perception before thought even begins. The mind sees what matches its tone. So if tone shapes perception, what shapes tone? A simple example makes this obvious. Someone who believes money is scarce will unconsciously avoid opportunities that contradict that belief. They won't notice openings, won't take small risks, and won't interpret events as favorable. Meanwhile, someone who believes abundance exists spots chances others overlook. Not because they're lucky, because their frequency allows those chances in. Isn't that a wild difference? Manifestation becomes practical when seen as emotional alignment rather than mystical wish-making. The RAS needs repetition, emotion, and clarity to retune its filters. Visualization gives repetition. Elevated emotion gives power. Daily focus gives clarity. Over time, perception shifts, behavior shifts, and opportunities shift. The world changes because the internal map changes first. So what map has been running the last decade? The echo returns: emotion programs perception. When someone changes their emotional baseline, through breathwork, meditation, intention, or self-regulation, their RAS recalibrates automatically. Abundance isn't luck, it's resonance. Scarcity isn't fate, it's conditioning. And if conditioning created the old frequency, what can reconditioning create next? This opens the path to sovereignty, the ultimate mastery where external systems stop dictating internal states and inner frequency becomes the true source of direction. Energetic sovereignty begins the moment someone realizes they can regulate their field regardless of what surrounds them. Breath resets the nervous system, intention redirects the internal signal, and coherence stabilizes the environment. The moment this becomes a habit, external chaos loses power. What would life feel like if inner stability became the default instead of the exception? Systems built on fear and distraction depend on low-frequency states to maintain control. A fearful mind doesn't question. A distracted mind doesn't create. An overwhelmed mind doesn't rebel. Once this is seen, liberation becomes a practical path, not rebellion, but regulation. Emotional mastery becomes a quiet form of freedom. And if freedom starts inside, where does it lead? Daily protocols make sovereignty real. 3 minutes of breath work upon waking, a moment of stillness before reacting, a short grounding pause before making decisions. These micro-rituals create coherence that's hard to shake. The world feels less heavy, opportunities feel more visible, relationships feel more balanced. What small ritual can begin reshaping tomorrow? With practice, someone learns to shape environments instead of absorbing them. A grounded presence calms rooms, disarms conflict, and sets the tone for connection. People begin responding differently because the field feels different. The echo rises, regulated energy regulates life. If life feels chaotic, what happens when the energy becomes steady? Liberation is subtle but powerful, questioning inherited beliefs, dismantling outdated narratives, reclaiming attention, and tuning perception consciously. Over time, sovereignty stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. This is mastery, not dominance, but direction. Not escape, but clarity. Isn't that the form of power the world keeps people from discovering? And now the loop closes into the full picture. Once someone controls their internal frequency, reality stops being a fixed experience and becomes a responsive field. Which means the journey now shifts from learning to applying. Once someone sees that everything is energy, nothing stays the same. Life stops feeling random and starts feeling responsive. Every thought becomes a tuning fork, every emotion becomes a signal, and every choice becomes a shift in frequency. The moment this awareness takes root, reality begins moving with you instead of against you. If this message stirred something, take a moment now to like and subscribe. It keeps your mind returning to what strengthens you, not what drains you. The next steps are simple. Keep your breath steady, keep your attention intentional, and keep your frequency clean. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder of their own power. What frequency have you been broadcasting lately? And what's the first shift you're making today? For the next video on your screen, the path deepens, follow it, and the field keeps opening.